Namaste, everyone. My name is Nikunj Trivedi. So happy to have all of you here join us today on the Coalition of Hindus of North America's first inaugural program. And it's a great pleasure to have us with us, Rajiv Malhotra ji, who have known him for many years. So most people don't need introductions to Rajiv ji, but we will talk about some of his background and stuff for those who are very not familiar with his work and stuff. But what I wanted to do is start off with a brief introduction about what we are as an organization. Um, so, Coalition of Hindus of North America, or CONA, is a grassroots level organization that is started by various Hindu young professionals, parents, and community members to stand up against discrimination and biases against Hindus and to make an impact on the way Hinduism and India are talked about in North America, in high school, colleges, media, and among policymakers. We are a platform for Hindus to collaborate on certain issues and areas to change the narrative and to advocate for a better understanding of Hindu heritage. We want to show the world that the world needs to respect Hindus and Hindu voices just like it respects that of any other religious and ethnic group. That Hindus are not some hate mongering, minority oppressing, casteist, and misogynistic lot, but are active contributors to a pluralistic, peaceful, and culturally rich world. Our primary focus is on issues impacting Hindus in North America. Some examples include protecting the image of Hinduism and India by working against false narratives and propaganda, discrimination and biases against Hindus in schools, public spaces, and government, how Hinduism and India are portrayed in textbooks, media, daily discourses, mainstream conversations, etc., and providing resources to the youth to develop their pride in their heritage and not feel shy, scared, or ashamed about Hinduism and India. We believe that by working on such issues, we will be able to make an impact, a long-term impact on the discourse about Hinduism in India and North America. There may also be issues and India related matters to India, which may impact Hindus in North America, whether the way India is portrayed or the way Hindus are talked about. Examples, discussions around Kashmir, the Citizenship Amendment Act, persecution of Hindus around the world, many other different things that might be impacting the way the discourses on Hinduism in India are in the US and academic circles, in the media, or in government circles. We will provide a Hindu perspective on these matters in order to ensure that the conversations are not one-sided and do not breed Hindu phobia. If you want to find out more information about us, or if you want to get involved, please visit our website, which is www.kohna.org. That's COHNA.org, or email us at info@kohna.org. So that's a little bit about our organization. We are just beginning. Now I want to introduce Rajiv ji. Rajiv ji is an internationally known researcher, writer, speaker, and public intellectual on current affairs as they relate to civilizations, cross-cultural encounters, religion, and science. He's the founder director of Infinity Foundation, which he set up in 1994. He has disrupted the mainstream thought process among academic and non-academic intellectuals alike by providing fresh, provocative positions on dharma and on India. Some of the focal points of his work are interpretation of dharma for the current times, comparative religion, globalization, and India's contributions to the world. He has authored hundreds of articles, provided strategic guidance to numerous organizations, and has over 400 video lectures available online. Some of his famous books are Breaking India, which is one of my personal favorites, Academic Hindu Phobia, The Battle for Sanskrit, Being Different, Indra's Net, and many others. He has also written many articles and papers, spoken at various leading international conferences, seminars, and think tanks. And one thing that I also know that was happened not too long ago, Rajivji, I think you were also appointed as the honorary professor for the Center of Media Studies at the Jawaharlal Nehru University. And as I said, I've known Rajivji for about 2 decades through my work in Hindu Students Council, and he has been a tremendous force of support and guidance and inspiration for many of us at HSC and beyond. So as we launch this new movement, we are fortunate to have Rajiv ji as the inaugural speaker. As I mentioned, ideally, we would love to have this in a physical location, but given the current circumstances, we will be doing this via Facebook Live. So Rajiv ji, wanted to kind of welcome you to this session. Wanted to, focus on some of the issues that you think are impacting us in America. This morning, you had some good discussions with a group in India about top 5 things that Hindu youth specifically should be thinking about. So what are some of the key issues that you want us to be aware of and that you think the Hindus in America should be working on?
Well, namaste to everybody, all the viewers, and to your organizations, and lots of good luck and blessings for your initiative.
Thank you.
We've known each other for a long time, and I'm always honored and happy to work with your groups, HSC, and this new initiative also. Uh, to talk about issues facing Hindus, I mean, I've been doing this for a while, but it changes also. In the 1960s, there was a crisis of American society because of the Vietnam War, drugs, all kind of things happened, and the traditional social fabric broke down. And so this was called the New Age movement, a counterculture movement. Young Americans were looking for alternatives to their worldview. And many of them found it in India. They went and looked for Indian gurus. They brought meditation here. They brought yoga. They brought all kind of Indian things. The hippie movement started, and these were all people who were sort of, revolting against American society in different ways, and found some answers in India. And this disruption of the American social fabric, then after many years of churning, with the help of Indian input, new kinds of ideas came and America got started again. And so this happens in American history every so often. The way of doing things, the thought process disrupts because of something. Now this has happened again because of the COVID-19. So COVID-19 has put the United States in a situation not that different from the 1960s, which started this whole New Age movement. And the reason I'm bringing this up is I think that the disruption of American society, people asking all kind of fundamental questions, what went wrong, what do we do differently, what will be the new normal, what will happen to work, what will happen to everything. This is an opportunity for new ideas. And this should be a focus for our leaders, our thought leaders, to bring to the Americans ideas from our background, our culture, which might be of use to the United States. Because every new group, every immigrant group brings its own, it's part of the American tapestry. It brings its own, what makes it different, what is special about it. And Americans are very happy to assimilate this new knowledge. So I think this is a positive opportunity to kind of come up with some hard-hitting, some very important thinkers and ideas that can help the United States figure out its future. Because Americans are not going to go back to life as usual. Some things will go back to the way they were, but some things will change. And so in what way will they change? How will values change? How will basic ethics change? Goals in life? I think our tradition has a lot to offer. So that's one thing that's happening new in America recently. It's happening, uh, which gives us an opening to bring in our ideas. The previous issues are still there. The issues that I started with in the mid 90s, and you guys are now championing the school textbook issues, the university textbook issues. We did a lot of projects on media portrayal in the United States against India, both TV and film and newspapers. A whole lot of political think tanks and what's going on. Some of the church seminary type products, academic products. So we looked at all of that, looked at where things are. Now my disappointment is that our side has not done enough. We really don't have our act together. We don't have robust institutions. We have a lot of charismatic leaders, people who want to become important and start some organization. It seems that the theatrics are very important for our people. The kind of drama effect, pageantry. We love big events and lots of fanfare, and everybody goes dressed up in a nice way. And the substance is not that much important to our people, unfortunately. So this way you can feel good for a while, and then the feel good vanishes after a few days, and then you're back to where you were. What we need are really important, deep structural changes. So for that, we need to build institutions. We need to build, leaders. We need to have think tanks. We need to produce output, research output. This is what's lacking. So I feel that the, uh, since I started, I have seen maybe 50 to 75 organizations pop up, all kind of organizations pop up. And then there's a nice panel of people who are trustees or members of the board, and a nice stationery, and they look for what should be a logo and what should be the menu for the first event. I mean, there's a lot of that kind of stuff, which is nice. I'm glad it's happening. But then what? What about the hard work? That requires tapasya. It requires off-camera work, not on camera.
That's right.
You see, before Zoom and before these online things happened recently, the fashion was live events in an actual big room. So that was a physical live event. But having any number of live events and any number of people present does not really make progress. That the real progress is not arousing people's emotions and expectations and making pronouncements and slogans and all that. The real hard work is done off camera, off stage. And so I want to see organizations set up goals and produce them. Just like in the corporate world, you start a meeting by looking at what did you resolve last time, and what's the status? Have you achieved it? Have you not achieved it? Why have you achieved it? So people have to be demanding, efficient project managers. We have so much talent in our community. When it comes to their day job, their profession, they're so efficient and so hardworking, goal-oriented. But why not the same goal orientation in the matters of dharma? Why dharma more about feelings and just becoming important and making people feel good? In your company, you never get away with just being theatrics and making people feel good. And I mean, you'd have to produce some results. So go to the organizations that have been around here for a long time and ask them what have they produced in terms of really big impact. And I don't want to name anybody, I don't want to put them on the spot, but I think that the crisis of our dharma in the United States is, originally I started talking about all the issues that others are creating, whether it's media or academic, whatever, and those problems are still there. But I now feel that the time has come, we should also start self-critiquing, because our own organizations have not produced much impact. And the impact, you don't evaluate progress by comparing it with how bad things were in the past. But where are your competitors? So you look at the organizations championing Islam. You look at the minority organizations of other kinds. Buddhists, where are they in the discourse? Where are even Jains too? I mean, Jains are part of Hindus. Jains are part of Hindus as far as I'm concerned, and also Sikhs are very close, and probably mostly the overlap is like 70-80%. There is some differences, but there's more Jain studies and Jain events. 25 years ago, they were not there at all. 25 years ago, the first Sikh study was started in UC Berkeley, Santa Barbara, and then a whole lot of others. Now it's all over the place. But we haven't, and I'm not promoting that we have to get into the academy and do things inside. These guys first set up a camp outside. They set up a real solid think tank from which they could guide, direct, call the shots, what's happening inside. And if you see, you'll hardly ever see scathing criticism on Sikhism or Jainism or Buddhism, okay? Because these guys will respond. And hardly ever on Islam. You will see a lot on Islam, but then they also will talk back. So my concern is what I call lack of kshatriyata. And I don't mean kshatriyas as a caste, birth-based. I mean as a quality of courage, leadership, being able to fight the good fight, go on for an encounter if required, lead your people, clarity of thought, and very good ethics. Very good ethics, so you're not using people, but you are actually leading them and helping them. So that's kind of my summary of where things are today.
Excellent. So, no, thank you, Rajiv. That's really helpful. So I think one thing you brought up was very good. You said, there's some new ideas that we can put in, right, through post-COVID-19 and stuff like that. There's a great opportunity. We have seen a lot of people, doing a lot of home-based cooking, home-based like Ayurvedic stuff. We were just talking about this earlier. So, what are from your perspective, if you had to take three big ideas post COVID-19 that Hindus can contribute to the American society, what would those be?
Well, I think the quintessential idea in the Dharma is to be able to have Anand by yourself and not be kind of addicted to external stimuli. Not having the whole syndrome of attention deficit in this society and jumping here and there and looking for external fulfillment is quite antithetical to the yogic meditation tradition. People who are really into a sadhana, people who are really into a certain dharmic practice, whatever it may be, they're generally able to be by themselves quite happy. So the first thing I would say is that the COVID is a good opportunity to see if you are happy by yourself, because yourself is a companion you can never get rid of. You can get rid of everybody else. You cannot get rid of yourself, your own company. So you better start enjoying your own company. And if you don't enjoy your own company, you're in trouble, because then you're going to look for some way to not have yourself present. Whether you get into some substance abuse, whether you get into external stimuli, whether you go for shopping, whether you're always needing to be engaged with other people, you need some external diversion if you're not contented with yourself. On the other hand, if you have yourself with contentment, nobody can take that away from you. So the ultimate company is yourself. So you have to develop that, and this is so important. We should be practicing it, cultivating it, and teaching the Americans the joy of being by oneself. So I would say that's kind of the primary. It's very covert, COVID-19 oriented idea, because there's so many people who are just desperate; they can't just be by themselves.
Yeah,
and they need to just get out and do something. But why? I mean, this really tells you something about the modern human being.
yeah. The social media aspects and all that stuff is like you need continuous stimulus to feel good about yourself,
Right.
and that's something that is antithetical to what dharma really is.
And any feel good you get from an external mechanism is not sustainable. It's not going to last. It's temporary, and it will go away, and you need a next fix. And like any addiction, it'll get worse. You need more and more of it, more intense stimuli. And it's not really anand. It's more like pleasure. And this is anand is a non-translatable. It's a certain feeling that you have when that feeling is not because of something else. It's just there by itself. It's a feeling. It's a certain state by itself, without depending on this object or that person. Cultivating this is so important. The whole New Age movement brought this into America, and it was considered such a great new thing. Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, when he started teaching transcendental meditation, they said that here's a guy who can give us a high without drugs. So they compared it with the effect of drugs. Okay, that you have that in your own mind to produce all that. But the thing is that while Americans have taken this, it's become Americanized, it's become digested, it's only at a certain level. There's so much more depth possible. And I don't see some of our gurus in the early 60s were very profound. And the gurus today, I don't see are that impactful, because they're kind of teaching what Americans already learned. I mean, you cannot make the same impact as the main five. There were 5 gurus who came in the 60s and they started this whole thing, and it was absolutely fresh and was a big thing those days. You cannot just recycle the same stuff. You have to go further. And our tradition is full of agamas, is full of knowledge about the environment. Now, why haven't our people started becoming leaders of the whole ecosystem movement, the environment movement? Why not? I mean, the whole respect for environment is so huge in our tradition. This COVID is nature fighting back. It's nature, because human beings have been very mean to nature. Somebody was telling me that 80 billion with a B, animals are killed every year for human consumption.
Wow.
That means 10 times the human population, that many animals are killed. And someone told me it's actually even bigger. But whatever it is, it's a big number. So, we're doing this to animals. what are we doing to nature in terms of deforestation, in terms of pollution all over the place, in terms of just name it, every part of nature we've tried to sort of uh, turn it into property. In the Dharma, nature is not property. Nature is a living manifestation of the divine. So, to call nature my property and have property rights and who owns it and what you can do with it, and the industrialization of nature, the industrialization of animals, the industrialization of cows and pigs and chickens,
Chickens and everything.
fish, industrialization as like there's some raw material. So we have committed a huge collective karma, and this is nature fighting back. That is one of the perspectives to teach people.
Indeed.
That this is nature fighting back, because karma is a very deep principle of ours. As you know, I'm really always talking about the importance of making sure our karma is correct, and not only individual but collectively.
Yes.
We as collective human beings have certain obligations. The giving back yagna is our obligation. And this idea, as a collective entity, collective community in America, we have some obligations to this society. We have obligations to this society to help them out, help them with what we know, which may be of benefit to them, and be open to learn from them. So this give and take is another contribution. This idea that we are not fixed, we are not dogmatic, we are not saying my way or the highway, we are kind of open, we want to engage with you, we want to transact back and forth, learn from you, and teach you. This is a very quintessential part of who we are. And so, this what we've called mutual respect in some of my works is a very important part that we bring. And America needs this mutual respect. And this is something we could, it has a lot of currency and we could do something with it.
Excellent. Well, these are excellent points. Now, just building on top of what you just said, the kind of the big three ideas and stuff, Ananda, the respect for the environment, the mutual respect and give and take that we should be learning from each other. I think that's a good philosophy to have. But sometimes what happens, as you know, the narrative about the Hindus, about India in general, even especially since last year, has shifted so much that all these good big ideas about our tradition get lost in translation. So no matter when you try to bring some of these ideas out, right? We say, oh, let's talk about yoga, let's talk about Ananda. It just starts, you're branded as Sanghi, or you're branded as like a right-wing Hindutva person who's trying to steal away this concept of yoga from some Western philosophy or some gymnastics that happen in California. That kind of construct is what is put upon us. So then how do you reply back? How do you adjust that narrative and say, no, this is from our tradition, that this is a time that we should be appreciating it, not worrying about if we're going to assert ourselves, we shouldn't be concerned that, we're going to be branded as Hindutva or some Sanghi, Modi Bhakt, these types of slurs that are used against Hindus for just standing up for who we are. So how do you kind of shift that narrative back to the positive?
So, India has some resources, but they're not productive. So there is the Indian Council of Cultural Relations, ICCR, which is part of the Ministry of External Affairs. They have, in all the major countries, they have somebody who's a cultural ambassador, a cultural attaché, or whatever they call him. They have Nehru centers in many countries like London and Moscow and all that. And this ICCR is a kind of a small-scale version of the Confucian institutes that China has. China has something like 200-300 Confucian institutes, which is their equivalent of this. And look at what they have done. When I started Infinity Foundation, I spent time understanding the Confucian institutes. I visited. I was in China. I visited in the US also, the whole China foundations, to understand their role model, what their plan is, who supports them, what are they doing. I looked at Korea Foundation. I looked at Japan Foundation. I looked at the Council on Islamic Relations. Okay. I looked at a lot of, and I visited and got to know these people. I looked at a lot of Buddhism studies people. I did my homework. I spent days in some of these places, talking to people in person, traveling there and taking notes, writing about it. So I actually did investigative work before I started talking the first word in public. So I don't see our people doing hard work. I don't see our people learning for how things work in America. How do institutions change the discourse in America? There are things, there are ways of, and by the way, I'm not going to disclose this secret, but I'm writing a book, which is going to be, well, I'm writing a lot of books, but the one book that's going to come out, I mean, I'm getting up 4 o'clock every morning to finish that. And I really, every time I think I'm almost done, I get another big idea. So I go back. So now I've decided that I'll make 2 books so that I can get the first one out quickly. And then I have more time for the second volume. And that will explain a whole lot of institutional mechanisms that we need to tap into. But I just gave you an example of ICCR.
Yeah.
But you could also look at, there's many Indian organizations. There's friends of this or that Indian organization, Hindu organization, could be political, could be temple oriented, could be the thing is they're all silos, and they have the legitimacy of being representatives of a big thing in India. I don't have any adhikar. I cannot go to the media and say, I speak as a so and so because I'm a one man, and I can still make a huge impact and do my best. But imagine people there is a misfit between the institutional power and authority and positions that they've given and the talent. The people with the talent don't have these positions and don't have the authority. And people who have the positions and authority are basically old timers. They're part of the old boys network, and they all are comfortable with each other. They're in the comfort zone. So it's a low risk. It's politically better to just give it to their own people. So, what has happened is this business of you have to be a Shakha product, and then you got trusted as somebody who can have responsibility. Or it's whatever I'm not picking on them. I actually like RSS a lot. I just want people to know that. I like the leaders at the top. They're smart people. They are genuine, good, decent human beings. I really like that. But, when you look at the rank and file, there is, for an organization that is so huge, there is a need for modernity. When you look at BJP, they're very good at running elections. And there are so many elections, you spend all your time, all your energy in India fighting the next election. What about discourse of bigger kind? What about supporting? They have ICCR. There is no reason that 99% of the Hindus in this country never heard of ICCR. Why is that so? And why isn't the ICCR run by people who can take on the media, who can be doing debates, who have their people to take on whatever is happening in this academy or that academy? Why just people like you and I? We are doing it as our Swadharma. But there are people for whom it is their official job. They are paid for it. I'm not looking for any payment or anything. Thank God I don't need that. But I think they can offer authority, legitimacy. They can offer moral support. They can offer symbolic credibility. They can, but they don't. So this is a serious problem for us. So it's very difficult to take on opponents who are backed by big institutions. They got mighty institutions behind them with long credentials. We are just a bunch of individuals. So, at the end of the day, they can say, okay, I'll ignore you. You can say what you want. That's what it amounts to.
How about setting up centers here? Like the ICCR, obviously, we know there are certain issues, but what about like in the US, like for example, the others have set up, whether it's the Islamic centers or the Sikh study centers, Jain centers?
So in a way, I set up Infinity Foundation to do that. And we produce books, we produce conferences, we produced so much intervention. But the thing is, Indians have a difficulty organizing around some initiative. They'd rather break up, start their own.
Yeah.
So if there are this tendency to kind of stick together emotionally, but to separate institutionally, it runs deep. It runs deep. In India, it's also manifest in the form of a lot of small farms. Rather than saying, okay, all these 200 farmers will get together and do collective farming, and become shareholders. Or this idea of small vendors waiting for some Walmart to come and take over, rather than saying, okay, we can organize. So this business of organizing into a collective, whether it's for business, whether it is for political reasons, whether it is for, institutions of knowledge, this has not happened. So generally people will go their own way. And the moment somebody has some traction, as part of an organization, he'll jump ship and go start his own. And this social media makes that even easier. Social media, there's no barrier to entry. Anybody with a laptop and a built-in webcam can just say, okay, now I come up with a clever name and I'm in business and I got my own show. So this means that you are always trading on sensations, the latest news, who got fired, who got FIR, who's thrown in jail, what's the scandal, especially important people. Then you arouse everybody's emotions, then you get retweets, you get more followers, and so you feel like, wow, I'm winning. Now, the social media is feeding this kind of a thing, and it's very antithetical to building long-term institutions.
You've hit a great point, Rajivji. I think this is an issue that we face. And I give you an example. Right now, you're aware that there is a resolution that's being passed in St. Paul, Minnesota. This resolution is against India. The fact that a small-time American city is passing the resolution against the largest democracy in the world is itself a travesty. But beyond that, we can see the struggle that our community is facing just to fight back and say, hey, this is unacceptable. And one of the reasons that is happening is because I think, and I look at it this way, East versus West, or Hindus versus the Western world. The Western world is an institutionalized religion, institutionalized thinking. And the Hindu tradition is non-institutionalized, right? It's like an operating openware, open software, open resource software that you have called your coin and stuff. So do you think is that the reason behind it, that we are just not meant for being organized in that sense? I mean, that's at least what the West wants us to think, right?
No, okay. This is a question I've looked at quite seriously. That have we in the past accomplished things collectively?
Yeah.
Now, the Mohenjo-daro, Harappa, Dholavira could not have happened as individuals just going around and doing their jugaad. It's not a piece of jugaad. Those are massive civilizations that lasted for 2,000-3,000 years with continuity of standards. They have standards of design, measurement, weights, city planning. So it seemed like they must have had committees. So there must have been an architectural committee. You cannot have, you cannot have cities that are so far located from each other with such standardization and such meticulous detail. It is collective work. Too bad we don't have, exact historical records. We have to infer and kind of backtrack into it. But I'm sure the evidence shows that there was collective thinking, organized thinking, institutionalized thinking of a very high standard in India. And that cannot be mixed up as something important because that's physically on the soil.
Yeah.
What is physically on the soil, you cannot deny its origin, it's there. So our ancestors were able to do this. So that's a good starting point. It's good news. The good news is
we had something.
It's not something out of our DNA to get organized. But then between then and now, a whole lot of things have happened and put us in disarray and all that. And we have had some big empires. We've had the Marathas, we had empires in the south, we had Maharaja Ranjit Singh in Punjab, we had major empires, some of them bigger than anything of that time in Europe, bigger than any comparable empire in Europe. So it's not as if we have not been able to do things collectively, we have. And then of a more knowledge-oriented kind, we have some paramparas, whether it's Adi Shankara, nowadays we are celebrating the anniversary, whatever, some of these paramparas have been very good at protecting and preserving for a very long time. The problem is, in the last 200 years, we've not been able to start new movements, new schools of thought that are current and robust from generation to generation. So Vivekananda started something great, but after Vivekananda died, the Ramakrishna mission is not what Vivekananda envisioned. It is not. It doesn't have that same firepower. In fact, the true successor to Vivekananda was Swami Chinmayananda, a separate guy who started Chinmay mission, and he had that Vivekananda firepower. But what happened after he died? Swami Tejomayananda took over. A very nice guy, know him well. Now, of course, he's passed it on to someone else. So as an institutional entity, they focused on brick and mortar, a lot of mandirs, a lot of schools, this sort of thing. But that firepower of Swami Chinmayananda, who would go to United Nations and take them on. What you and I are doing, Swami Chinmayananda used to do. If you look at Swami Chinmayananda's speeches and his debates and fights with American journalists, and what he did in the United Nations and various places, it's so current for what we are trying to do. And then after him comes Swami Dayanand Saraswati, who's also leader of that kind. So I would say in that range of international good representatives, we can take inspiration from these three: Vivekanand, Swami Chinmayanand, and Swami Dayanand Saraswati. But we need to scale it.
Yeah.
I mean, we can't just go on waiting. Okay, somebody will come. You see, so that mantle of very assertive international diplomacy and media savvy for our tradition, and being able to bring in all kind of people, not just your own followers. See, that's one of the problems. All these silos, whether they are political, civic type silos, or religious guru silos, they're very closed, and they're their own people they are wanting to hang on to and promote them and all that. But somebody who can think pan-dharmic, we need those kind of people.
Excellent. No, I totally agree with you. Do you think that we need to establish some kind of a training course or like an academy in a way to, like you were talking about the Kshatriya Academy, right? And the Intellectual Kshatriya Academy and things like that. How should the community think about that? Because I think to build new leaders, to build new ways of thinking, you have to kind of be groomed by a certain way.
So here's something practical. We are offering a course on my book, Breaking India. It's an online course. In about 9 hours, you can take the whole course. I would like all the viewers to take that course. It's a course that Indus University and is hosting on their site. We've developed it in Gujarat. If you come to our website, infinityfoundation.com, you can join one of our groups and ask the question, how to enroll. You can go to rajivmalhotra.com and send me a message saying, I wish to enroll. How do I do it? So you have ways of contacting us, and we can send you the link. We have a Google group, our satsang. It's a daily satsang kind of, we call it our satsang group. And you can join that. There's a few hundred people, a few thousand people there. So you can figure out ways of getting into our curriculum. So let's say we have developed one course. It's a very solid book. You started by saying you like it. Yeah. So there is no excuse that all Hindu groups should not be championing, that all their members should take that course. It's whatever, I don't know, 300-400 rupees or something trivial.
It's not that bad.
I mean, it's not like we're making any money. So that money stays with Indus because they spend some money for servers and all. It's their money. I would like to just give it for free. But I don't think the price is a deterrent. No. People need the interest. So by now we should have had lakhs of people taking it. Why not? Why aren't they taking it? That will encourage us to bring out more courses. I would take each of my books and turn it into a course. I would like to do that. But we need to know that the people are taking it in the thousands.
Yeah.
And it's hard enough to write these books and then work with people who turn them into courses. But for me to have to go peddling around marketing it is not a good. I mean, I should not be spending my time doing that. Yeah. We need other leaders like yourself to champion these courses. That's if people take a certain amount of our courses, we want to certify intellectual Kshatriya. We want to give them ability to debate, ability to take on opponents and answer questions. We want to create a whole cadre of people, and they don't have to belong to any institution, ours, theirs, doesn't matter. It can be any random person who would like to teach.
That's a great idea. And in fact, we'll talk about this in our new coalition that we're actually forming, because the idea is to change the way people react and people reply or respond back to the current narrative. So if this can help, that's certainly something that we want to do.
I mean, there should be certain, if you endorse and say, okay, that's a course we want all our members to take. No excuse. They should take it.
Good point. Excellent. Now, one of the questions that I saw coming up was, I talked about the CAA earlier, right? And this is a very Indian issue, but what's happening is it's not necessarily an Indian issue because 95% of Hindus live in India. So anything that happens in India directly or indirectly impacts Hindus here. So there's been a lot of discussions around these types of narratives. And what people are asking is, for example, the resolution that's being passed in Minnesota, in the St. Paul, Minnesota. What is your opinion to kind of respond correctly? Should people be protesting? Should they be, suing them? Should they be, what's your opinion on that?
Well, first of all, since it's attacking the nation of India, the government of India has a role. The government of India has never participated in discussing, debating the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom. Since the very year that commission started, I used to attend their events, physically go all the way to Washington to attend their events, raise questions, give a response, public critique of it. I used to do that for several years, so that maybe the government will catch on and say, okay, this is going to get out of hand. This has been around for a very long time now. I stopped doing it because no traction from the government.
Yeah.
I mean, either they're happy I'm doing it, but they're not supporting me in any way. Their own huge army of bureaucrats and people, diplomats, are sitting around and just taking all the credit, but they're not willing to stick their neck out, to work hard, to read the report. You have to read the report, take all the claims they're making, look at the references, chase them down, like any research you have to do to come back. I have gone personally to Washington, have private meetings with the commissioners, private meetings, and told them about all this. And their basic thing is they're very impressed with my stuff, but then, I don't represent any authority or any institution. That their critique is not of me. Their critique is of India as a country. And it's for the authorities in India to do something. So the reaction has been, the posture of India has been, do nothing, ignore, and then react, be reactive. If things get out of hand, we'll react. Rather than being proactive, rather than saying, okay, let's plant positive seeds of discourse from our side. Let's plant positive seeds, counter narratives from our side. Let's not wait till we are attacked and then we have to react. So it's a reactive posture. These tendencies, when a certain group of senators, congressmen, whatever, get together, it actually, this is brewing for months, if not years, before it becomes a resolution. So where are our eyes and ears to look for all this? Why aren't we able to engage? Indians are very fond of going to some fundraiser for a politician, because they'll get a selfie and they'll send it home and say, I'm a very important guy. This guy likes me. He shook my hand. He was hugging me. My daughter went and lit the lamp over there. All this symbolism, this complete BS in some ways. We are so full of that, full of this kind of a show and tell. Now, when these people are giving some tens of thousands of dollars to these politicians, why aren't they able to pick up the phone and say, I don't like this bill, and I want you to publicly go against it? Why don't they do that? You see, they will say, oh, I can't be controversial. So the idea is, I want the benefit of being a Hindu. When it's good stuff, I want to be involved. I want to get the credit in India and among Hindus. And I also want to project Hinduism to Americans when it's something positive going on. Yeah. But I don't want to do the hard work.
Yeah.
Let some Rajiv guy, some other guy will do all the hard work. Let him get all the flack. Okay. Now I'm saying I've had enough of that. And it is our karma, in a sense, as a community, that our leaders have not been wanting to go out and, stick our neck out, make the sacrifices like Kshatriyas are supposed to. So when all this happens, I'm telling you, this will happen more and more. In fact, I used to monitor various things going on. I stopped doing it because I can't keep up with it. And I went and told so many people, I'll set up a system. But you hire people. I'll set up a system. Who to monitor? How to monitor? Teach them. But everybody said, yeah, we'll do it. But they thought it's very easy work. That's another thing. Our people feel that the work is easy. And when you trivialize the work, you don't have staying power, you don't have stamina, because you're going to quit very quickly and run away. When you find out the work is very hard, it'll take a very, very long time. It takes more investment, more risk. So you have to know that going in.
Absolutely. And I think that's the thing. I think what I've seen is, and one of the reasons why we started this coalition is because there are some people who are really interested in doing that, but they can, many times people don't get beyond WhatsApps. They create a group. There's a WhatsApp discussion. I was talking to some people. They've created a group with like 500 people on Telegram or 1,000 people on Telegram. And then after 7 days, it becomes, just a dumping ground for like just stuff that's happening all over the world.
Yeah, everybody's posting some link or something personal, this and that. Just a useless thing. The WhatsApp is the new version of in the days 20 years ago. They would actually at least have a sit-down meeting, and they would design a logo and a stationery, and whose name will be on the left margin, and who are the office holders. And that was very big, highly negotiated, who you get to be on that. Once that is done, and you are somebody, official in that, then nobody would do any work. It's almost like you're doing some puja to the devata, and you want to name all the people who are going to get merit. Bhai, Bhen, Ye, Wo, everybody. So everybody's name is in for the puja being done. So we all get the merit for it. So people are almost looking at it that the job is one of just doing some puja or creating some organization, making a logo, putting your name on it. But this requires hard work.
Yeah. It's a real
That's the
sadhana and
problem.
tapasya, like you said. I agree with
Tremendous
you.
amount.
Yeah. No, that's really important. What you had mentioned is earlier about the narratives and how we got to have a proactive approach to it, right? Um, a lot of times we just react. We are just always reacting, like you mentioned. How do you create that proactive
So
approach?
the reason we are reacting is because we prefer to be in our comfort zone. So as long as I'm comfortable, I don't want to rock the boat. Life is okay. I don't want to rock the boat. When my comfort zone is disrupted, I have to react. So that's where the reactivity comes from. So you have to be somebody who says, I don't want to take my comfort zone for granted. It's a gift I have. I want to be giving back. That is my yagna. That is my tapasya. So the fact that I'm comfortable means I have even more responsibility to go out and do something. So now is the time because I'm comfortable. I have the means. I'm healthy. I have financial means. I'm stable, whatever it is. I have the means to go and invest in something. I should do that. I shouldn't wait until things go bad and then I want to react. This is sort of tamasic thinking. This is a tamasic. It's not a sattvic. It's not clarity, because it doesn't make any sense. To be reacting, you're going to lose. I mean, in any field, any competitive field, whether you're just reacting in chess or whether you're just a defensive player in cricket, I mean, you're never going to win. Eventually, you will lose. So, teaching people to get out of this comfort zone is very important. And now the comfort zone of being online is comfortable. But offline, what work are you doing? What is your contribution which is not on camera? That's very important.
Yeah, a lot of times people don't realize that the real work, like you said, gets done in the background, not on camera, because that everyone can do, but the real work is in the background. No,
and
I agree with you.
Everybody wants to be a showman. They want to be the main figure in front and make all kind of proclamations and rip off things from here and there to claim it as their own. And everybody want to. Our culture is like that. I mean, our leadership today has become like that. Easy entry. No barrier to entry, no quality standard required. Everybody can just self-proclaim, I'm a leader, and call himself that. And then it's a question of how many supporters you can get. So this is shoddy quality. This is not dharmic at all. So the dharma has to start with us. You have to have respect for where you learn things from. You have to have respect. You have to have respect for lineages, for building paramparas. Not paramparas only in the sense of spiritual gurus, but also paramparas in the kshatriya sense.
Good point. Another question that someone had was, some of these nowadays there's a first generation, second generation, third generation of Hindus growing up in and even a fourth generation now in high schools and maybe colleges. What can parents do at a younger age to instill some of this intellectual kshatriyata? Let's say as sixth graders or seventh graders, so that when they get to college level, they're not brainwashed by some of the the leftist or anti-Hindu propaganda that's out there about Hindus, and they don't turn away from their tradition.
So the best is when the parents themselves are well informed. I mean, when you came to my house, we had this event. There were some examples where the parents are well informed, and therefore they are getting their kids in schools to participate, wearing their identity with pride. Not arrogance, not violence, no anger, but with love, wearing their identity, which is the American way. That you should be who you are and be mutually respectful of other people. So there are some people already doing that. Others have kind of outsourced it to, Bal Vihar and things like that. So that's the second choice, because it's not something you're living, but you feel that some other, like somebody else is going to take over, some babysitter kind of. We're going to take over, babysit my kids, and give them these values because I'm too busy. Yeah. Okay, that's abrogating your parental responsibility. Then there are those who don't have any of those, but they'll just want to ad hoc here and there. I get so many messages and emails and all that on a regular basis saying, help me do this, do that, and I cannot be a person with individual one-on-one care. I cannot. I mean, I'm just not able to have that scale. So I can't do that. But the demand is very much there. The demand is definitely there. And my feeling is we need to develop e-learning
Yeah.
because that's what gives us scale. So let's develop this e-learning. Then we can develop smaller courses, simpler courses, all kind of courses, and just flood the market with a whole lot of online material, good material.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up because there's a project that some of us are working on in terms of the e-learning modules and website and stuff like that. That would be from a teaching perspective for teachers as well as for students. If you look at Muslim TV or some of these other online channels, they're beautiful. They talk about their tradition in a very beautiful way, where students, little kids, can feel proud of being Muslim, being proud of who they are from their identity purposes. Similarly, the Jews, if you go to Amazon, you have some of these books, even for like babies, of how the Holocaust happened, and they show like the Gestapos as like these horrible people, and then they of course show the Jews being persecuted in a very baby friendly way. So we have to come up with those type of strategies and techniques as well. So some of us are working on those types of e-learning courses, and absolutely we'll love to get some guidance from you too. And then another question that someone had was, recently there was I'm not sure if you're familiar with, but there was a guy in Canada, Mr. Huda. He had made some comments and he was fired from from Remax Realtors, fired them from the job because his comments were looked at Islamophobic or something like that. Any thoughts on that from your side?
Well, when a person gets in trouble from our community, he's on his own. Nobody helps him. I've faced it all the time. I call it the betraying your wounded warrior. No military will betray its wounded warriors and manage to be a successful military. Because the warrior needs to know, if I'm injured, they look after me, look after my family. They're not going to abandon me as a liability. In the US military, it's you'll get court-martial if you desert wounded warrior when you could have helped him and your job is to stay there. And if you couldn't save him right then, you have to come back no matter what it takes. It may take another 10 people to go and rescue one guy, but you got to do it. This is to create a morale that I'm there for them, they are there for me. But we don't have that. So if I've, in the last 25 years, how many times I've been attacked. And then who comes to my rescue? It's sort of like I have to go begging here and then say, hey, come on, guys, I'm not all that bad. They want all they can get out of you, but when it's time to stick their neck out and be with you, they're not there. So this is what happened to this Huda. There is no mechanism. If there were an Islamic guy who had this problem or a Jewish guy, or in most traditions, they would be instantly some kind of a network. So they have this mechanism we don't have. So many people have started these organizations to champion this, that. I used to call all these people once upon a time. I stopped calling them. I used to take an example like Huda, and I would then go call 10 organizations, the friends of this and the friends of that, and this such and such Indian organization in America, and some Hindu American Foundation, this Dharma Foundation. I had a whole list of these people. They all know me and they all respect me. But then when it's time to, okay, let's do something together, nobody wanted it. People wash their hands off.
Yeah,
and this means that the next would-be Hudas will be very scared. They'll say, why should I be doing this?
Yeah,
that's a very important problem we have.
Yeah. So one of the things that some of us have been discussing is, how do you fund this stuff, right? One of the concerns that we have is like, okay, we want to do all these things, but at the same time, as you know, funding has been a major problem from our community. There are a lot of good people out there who donate to Seva type of like Seva efforts, whether it's through Ekal Vidyalaya or through other organizations, and that's a great thing. But then we also need some money to do some of these advocacy things. And you have faced a similar situation, from a funding perspective. What do you think the community should be doing? How should they support people who want to work on the Kshatriya front?
Well, community has to be more generous in support, because I gave up my business at the height of my career. If I had stayed, I could have been worth a pretty substantial amount, because at a young age I made very well. I gave that up, sacrificed my zero income since then for 25 years, zero. Didn't take a paid job, no, nothing, no. And basically took the savings of that, made my retirement plan out of it, and I'll put a whole lot of money, my own, into the Infinity Foundation. And then we are now looking for public support. We get some people sometimes support. Some people are very generous; they support substantially. But we need a lot of help. We need a large amount of help, and this is your way to be in the yagna, through helping participate. Somebody else is doing the work. You don't have the time or the wherewithal, but you can support him. And then whatever work he's doing with your support, you're also part of that. So the yagna can be also through funding. You can be part of the funding yagna. People should know these things. But people are the mandirs have no problem raising money, because to fund a deity and a puja, people feel I'll get merit. I will, my children will be better off, my business, my health.
Contractual agreement.
It's a kind of a transaction I'm doing. I invest this; it's a good investment, like that. What they don't realize is that the defense of dharma is the ultimate yagna you could do, and helping support that is of amazing value. We need temples. It's good for bhakti. Bhakti is a very important part of our tradition, but so are these other things. And the temples are not doing kshatriyata. I don't know why. Temples are scared to do kshatriyata. Temples are not training kshatriyas. If I were to go and want to do a talk, somebody invite me, many temples will not allow. They'll say, oh, controversial. Some temples will book a room far away in their premises, which is meant for public events. You can have anything you want. Shadi, Wadi, all those marriage events, parties, birthday parties. So they'll give out a thing like that. And none of the Swamis will come to have anything to do with it. It's just like they're in the business of a convention hall they're renting to somebody. That's the involvement. And the people who are organizing it will have to pay money, just like market rates. So the temples are not in any way investing there. They have a huge amount of cash flow. The temples are rich in the United States. Temples are rich because people are giving a lot of money to temples. Temples have a responsibility too as funding sources.
Great point. Now, final question from me. I know we're almost out of time. How can Hindu organizations in the US and India partner with each other, as well as globally, so in the UK, etc., to exchange, common concerns, common issues, common platform? What are some of your thoughts how we can do that?
Well, informally, people are picking ideas from each other. They watch a YouTube channel or they read a book and then they spin it as their own. So they're getting knowledge like that. But I think your question is institutionally.
Yes.
Not some individual who says, okay, I'll pick up ideas from here and there. Okay. But institutionally. So that institutional collaboration is very necessary, very helpful, very important. But we used to have a gathering of all kind of organizations. We put several together. I think you were part of it. Yeah. There was this something we set up for school textbooks. We set up all these and we would bring them together. Some of them meetings we had in Ashvidya Gurukula. We had some in Rutgers.
Yes.
But the thing is that they don't sustain. Yeah. Because people who come, everybody want to talk about what they're doing and try to see what they can get out of it. But if there's a common cause, you should come with the attitude, what can I do to help that common cause? How am I going to make that cause successful? That's the attitude with which a group will hang together. The attitude where I will go and see what we can get out of it, but I want to minimize my investment, maximize what I can get out of it, is not going to work.
Good point. And I think that's something that we want to do. Hopefully when COVID-19 and everything comes back, we can hold a small gathering. I'm not going to say global and this and that because I'm not there. I don't have that adhikar yet so far. But what I want to do is get together with people like yourselves and others who are looking at meaningful things, meaningful contributions. So we'll end it for now. But Rajiv, this has been an excellent conversation. Thank you so much for your time. Looking forward for more programs together. And as things open up, we will invite you to different places and to inspire us, but also work together to see how we can impact the narrative on Hinduism in India.